Good afternoon, folks. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to our fifth equity session in our equity series. Thanks for logging on today. As you log on, we just want to know who's in the Zoom. So if you could, in the chat, drop a line as to who you are, uh, which org you're with, your city. We're also interested in finding out if you've attended one of our previous sessions. So there's actually going to be a poll popping up. So in addition to representing in the chat, if you could represent in the poll as well, that would be awesome.
It's coming. There it is.
Yeah. Okay.
Welcome.
Welcome, folks. All right, welcome to the newcomers whose first event. Let us know who you represent org-wise and what city you're in. We've actually had folks across the state join us, and that's been really exciting. Good afternoon, Jane. What's up, folks?
And I swear we had somebody from New Jersey in one of the sessions too, which was exciting.
Yeah. Okay. A little over a quarter of the folks here. It's your first time, so welcome. Thank you. For those who are coming back, we appreciate you coming back to dive in deeper as we go into this last session. Let's share those results with folks so we can get a sense as well of who's in the Zoom. Alrighty.
What's happening in the chat down there?
Got lots of folks. Welcome, everybody. All right. So as you type a little bit about yourself in the chat, I'm going to go ahead and tell you a little bit about myself and who we have on today's panel and in this session. So my name is Valerie Okalola. I am a member of the City of Oakland's Department of Violence Prevention, as some of you may know as formerly as Oakland Unite. And I have the honor and privilege of working with a lot of these other folks as part of Workforce Community Solutions, which was funded by the State Workforce Board. And let's see, we may have some slides that give more.
Oh yeah, you ready for that?
Yeah, I think that.
Let me pull that up here. Oh, let me screen share first.
Okay.
Sorry, slow zoomer. All right, here we go. Let me now get us to, oh my gosh, I have so many pop-ups. All right, Valerie, can you see that?
Yes, we're on it. Here we go. So this is our part 5 in our series. And as you can see from the slide, we're going to dive in a bit deeper into organizing and advocacy in an effort to advance economic equity. And as part of that effort, we have a series of folks on our panel who will speak to the work that they do in doing that, and also allow for some time for all of us to talk about how we can incorporate some of those best practices and lessons learned into our work as we continue to push forward and push for equity, workforce equity. So as I mentioned before, I have the honor of working with a great team of folks under the Workforce Community Solutions moniker. And this project, as I mentioned, is funded by the State Workforce Board. And as part of our work, we worked to focus regionally on breaking down system silos and also to increase economic equity. And the means in which we are doing that is through these sessions. And so we've provided a plenary and kind of a orientation and deep dive into what is equity. But we didn't want to just do that. We wanted to dive deeper. And so we wanted to have a series of how-tos so that folks can come away with some ways in which they can implement what they learn into the day-to-day as it relates to workforce equity matters. So you can go to the next slide, I believe. Perfect. So, in addition to working with, the Department of Violence Prevention, getting funds from the state board, and working with the Workforce Accelerator Fund, getting funds there, who are listed on this slide. We also have a number of other folks that we've worked with as part of the community planning team. So shout out to y'all. We appreciate you. So we wanted to just give y'all a shout out as you helped us with all of these efforts.
All right. Thank you, Valerie.
Yeah.
So I'm Kim Colthurst from Pathways Consultants, and I'm the person that's been nagging and emailing everybody. So welcome. We're really happy to see you. And as we began this work, as Valerie said, we thought it was important for us to even get clear about what equity meant with respect to our work on this project in the workforce field, and along with all of our partners that workforce, leverages housing, financial literacy, all the other parts that make workforce work, was getting clear about what equity meant for us. And oh my gosh, I have another pop-up here. Hang on, let me move my pop-up. All right. So this is our position on equity, just to ground us all for the session. We acknowledge that community members in our Bay Area region are disproportionately harmed by policies, systems, and beliefs that disadvantage based on race, gender, and ability. Poverty, incarceration, trauma, homelessness, and more are symptoms of biased policies and practices. Due to the inequitable access to opportunities and resources, responses must be multi-generational, systemic, and rooted in policies and practices that acknowledge the inequities and promote inclusion and full participation. So that's our working definition of equity for this project. Let me go to the next slide. And also, we are starting from a place of, aligned with what I just said in the equity statement. We have some givens that we're operating from as a starting place. And I'm happy to share other resources for folks who might not be as familiar with systemic racism and institutional racism. There's a lot to learn, but I'm happy to share that. We're not going to do that today. We're starting from this place, which is that racism is real. White supremacy permeates the globe. Oppression is working 24/7. It's structural and systematic, and we are fighting historic and generational inequities. So that's where we're starting from today. So thank you. Let me mute myself and get.
Kim, are you on mute?
I'm muted. Valerie, Darlene, do you need that other slide to talk about the session? What do you?
Oh yeah, if you could bring that slide back up, that'd
Yeah, let me pull that back up.
Yeah, do a quick intro.
Whoop. All right, here we go. Let me go back to the other slide, the original one. There we go.
Perfect. Thank you. As given those givens and our position, we thought it'd be best and relevant to continue our conversation as we try to dig deeper and identify ways to take action and inform equity by having a conversation about how we can do that in community organizing and advocacy work. So today we have a group of folks today who will, as I mentioned before, speak to their organizing and advocacy work and how others can do the same within their communities. But before we jump into that discussion, I did want to introduce our moderator for today's panel. Many of you who are, this isn't your first go around, may remember Darlene Flynn from our initial part of this series, which was a really, really great start to this series, if I might add. And so we have the honor of having Darlene with us once more to serve as our moderator. Darlene Flynn is the director of the City of Oakland's Race and Equity Department here in Oakland, and she has more than 10 years of experience implementing systematic level change and increasing racial equity in city government. Now, before she joined the City of Oakland, she was on the ground level in developing the Race and Social Justice Initiative in the City of Seattle's Office of Civil Rights. So, doing big things. We are really honored to have her in the City of Oakland and here today as our moderator. So, Darlene, if you would, take it away.
Thank you so much, Valerie. It's a pleasure to be here with you this afternoon. And my first task is to share with you some information about the great panel that is going to be presenting today. First of all, I'd like to tell you about Yaya Ruiz. She has been staff with the National Domestic Workers Alliance for about 2 years. She's tasked with growing the base of domestic workers in both Santa Clara and San Mateo counties, areas with vast wealth/poverty disparities. Prior to becoming staff at NDWA, Yaya already had a long-term relationship with the organization and its members in her role as an interpreter. Her passion and commitment to empower and engage domestic workers comes from the personal and political space. Yaya is a proud queer migrant mujer. She is a mother to a wondrous child and a daughter to a wonderful mother. She's also granddaughter to Tomasa, her deceased maternal grandmother, who worked as a live-in domestic worker from a young age. Yaya holds a Bachelor's of Arts in Global Studies from CSU Monterey Bay. She's multilingual in Spanish, English, and Portuguese, and hopes to learn more languages. We also have today Gwen Brown, who is the Executive Director of Inner City Youth, a Black-led organization based in the OMI district of San Francisco since 1997, and now under the umbrella of Youth Community Developers. IC was founded by her late father, Michael Brown, a city bus driver turned real estate investor, and her great aunt, Gwendolyn Austin, an educator for San Francisco Unified School District for over 40 years. In September 2018, IC opened the OMI Job Center to provide workforce services, including a business center, employment assistance, placement, barrier removal, and supportive services. Gwen is a second-generation leader, continuing the legacy of economic development, sovereignty, and property ownership for Black San Franciscans through her work as a founding member of San Francisco Black Wall Street, committee chair of San Francisco Black-led Organizations Coalition, and general member of Invest Black OMI. She is a proud product of San Francisco Public Schools and holds a Bachelor's of Arts in Economics from Mills College, Oakland, California. And last but not least, Janelle Bailey has been at the LA Black Workers Center since early 2019. Prior to joining the Black Workers Center, she canvassed Chicago neighborhoods to build a base of people to address over-policing and housing, and helped to establish the Chicago Black Workers Center's first membership. Janelle, who later served on the board of the Chicago Black Workers Center's sister city Center for Racial and Gender Equity, was an ongoing coordinator with the SEIU based in Chicago, and is a national trainer for Jobs and Justice, an LA Black Workers Center partner. At both the SEIU and Jobs with Justice, she organized to build worker power to raise standards in industries, and facilitated and witnessed organizers' leadership development and victories. Together, they organized alongside Black workers to reclaim more than $100,000 in stolen wages and to win union contracts for hundreds of workers in Chicagoland and Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So we have a great panel to share with us from their perspectives and their diverse experience doing work, advancing justice for workers. And so I'm really excited to hear from them, and I'm sure that you will benefit from what they have to share today. Yaya, are you prepared to kick us off? Each panelist is going to speak for about 7 minutes, and then we will have a chance to ask questions and have a little bit of a conversation.
Darlene, I'm sorry to interrupt, Yaya. We could close the poll as well too, if I can
Please
find where it went. Swear to God, I'm having one of those. There we go. Share results.
That's a good idea.
Let's see. There we go. Oops, share results. There we go.
All right.
You can see that, yeah?
Yeah, I can see it anyway.
All right, great. Looks
We
like
have lots of folks returning and lots of people here for the first time. That's fantastic.
great, thanks.
Thank you so much, Darlene, for the introduction. Thank you, Kim, for facilitating this space as well. And thank you so much, Jessie, for the invitation. Happy to be with my other sister panelists. And so before I share my PowerPoint, I just want to say that I am an organizer with NDWA, like Darlene stated, and I have been tasked with building our base in San Mateo County and Santa Clara County. So I'm going to present on our larger work, but I'm happy to answer any more detailed, specific questions about the region in which I'm working in. So let's do this. And I have quite a bit of slides, so I'm going to be speaking kind of fast. So please do let me know in terms of time and, oh no, I did not do that right. View presentation. Thank you. All right, great. So NDWA was founded in 2012 at the United States Social Forum in Atlanta, Georgia. And we started off with 13 affiliate organizations, and now we have 70 affiliate organizations involved in our alliance, as well as that includes our chapters that we have in DC, Philadelphia, San Jose, Santa Clara, New York, and then in the South with our Black program that is specific chapters for Black domestic workers. We also have our C4, which is Care in Action, that did a tremendous amount of work for these past elections. And then we also have NDWA Labs, which is one of our programs, and it's also an LLC. So we're kind of in a variety of different spaces, multi-pronged approach to our organizing. As many of you might know, domestic workers are the workers that allow for the rest of the work in the world to happen. We work and organize specifically home care workers, house cleaners, and childcare workers, nannies. We know that in the United States, there's approximately 2.5 million domestic workers who work for approximately 5 million employers in 5 million workplaces, right? Individual homes. And I'll say that in California, we know that there's about 300,000 domestic workers working in about 2 million homes. And as you might know, domestic workers have been excluded from labor rights and protections pretty much forever. And so this means that there's a lot of them, most of them don't have contracts. They don't have any funds towards retirement. They don't have healthcare insurance. They may not have consistent work, consistent hours. They don't have a right to unionize. A lot of them aren't paid minimum wage or overtime pay, or have weekends off or any of the other benefits that many of other sectors experience. So that's the need for organizing, right? And we know that as it was mentioned, systemic racism is real, and the legacy of domestic workers really comes from slavery times. Here, however, is some examples of people resisting, even from the beginning of the domestic worker history in this country. For example, we see a picture here of Atlanta washerwomen. They went on strike in 1881. And then we see that in 1968, Dorothy Bolden was actually one of the first African-American activist, domestic worker, organizer in the United States. And so Specifically, she founded the National Domestic Workers Union of America in 1968. So very powerful stuff. These pictures, by the way, are part of a collaboration that NDWA did with Smith College to create 500 years of domestic worker history website, which will be coming out shortly in a variety of languages. Very interactive, like really amazing. Amazing resource. We know that domestic work has always been here and will continue to be here. And in fact, it's a sector that's particularly growing in this time because of generations of folks that are retiring at the moment. So by 2024, we predict that there's going to be a 30% growth in in the need for personal care aides and home health aides. And in general, in 2024, we predict that there's going to be a 6.5 growth in all other jobs that are not domestic work. So you can imagine the need for domestic workers. This is us in DC when we launched our National Domestic Worker Bill of Rights that was sponsored by Senator and VP candidate Kamala Harris, and also or shall I say VP winner, and also Priyanka Jayapal. And if you can see, that's my squinty face right there. And it was one of the hottest days, I swear. So some of our goals are that we want for every care job, whether you're taking care of a child, a person with disabilities, a person who's ill, or an elderly person, and every cleaning job to have a living wage and benefits by 2030. We also envision a multiracial democracy where women of color are supported to lead. And we want to continue to build power by building our membership and organizing workers and continuing to build our movement with our allies, as well as raising standards. And I might move through some of these a little bit quicker. The biggest challenges that I feel that we believe are that we experience as a movement of trying to raise standards for domestic workers is just the structural racial exclusion of women of color in general, both immigrant women and native born women in our democracy and in our culture. And then two, just the challenge of the sector itself, right, which is working in isolation in a private home. There's a lot of desegregation behind closed doors, and so it's difficult for people to unite. And so you can, further see the importance of organizing. And the way we build our power is through the political arena, narrative arena, economic area, and we also do a lot of disruption and modeling of the vision we have for domestic workers. We also believe that organizing is transformative within and in itself, and that we can transform society at the political level through worker stories, in the economic sphere, and also again by modeling and having women of color and immigrant women be represented in all areas of our society. We've had a lot of breakthroughs. We've redefined organizing. We have developed a lot of really awesome policies. We're rewriting what the new economy looks like, and we're mobilizing workers. We're shifting the narrative and changing culture, and we are, a leader in our movements. Here are some beautiful slides about our alliance that reflects our workforce. We currently have membership and involvement from domestic workers in all 50 states. And we just want to continue to implement and replicate our victories for the future and continue to build momentum and advance campaigns to transform what care looks like and what cleaning looks like in this country. So far, we have been able to pass domestic worker bill of rights in 10 states and 2 cities. So it's very exciting. And our 1.0 domestic bill of rights consists of fixing like these racist and sexist exclusions, create a minimum floor for domestic workers, and bring domestic workers up to par with other workers. And then our 2.0 model is more about integrating mechanisms in order to facilitate enforcement of labor rights and to continue to organize and negotiate at an industry level. And finally, 3.0 is to address specific challenges with tech platforms, including regulating data ownership and transparency. As we know, there's a lot of platforms who right now cater to the home care, child care, and house cleaning industries. And these are the 2 cities in which we've passed. Time? I'm at time. Let me go through this really fast. Wrap it up. What else can I say? We did a fund during coronavirus times. We were able to fundraise $30 million and support over 40,000 workers. And the last thing I'll add is that our program, We Dream in Black, that's specifically focused on organizing Black domestic workers, created an agenda for the next 5 years called Unbossed, a Black domestic worker agenda. So again, I have more information about everything that I just shared. Thank you so much for the time. And let me stop sharing.
And we'll come back to you, Yayo, with questions. People will be thinking about things that they'll want you to elaborate on. Thank you so much. Was that Seattle and Oakland? Were those the 2 cities?
Seattle and Philadelphia.
And Philadelphia. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Sure.
Gwen, are you ready?
Yes, I am. Hi, everyone. My name is Gwendolyn Brown. I'm the Executive Director of Inner City Youth. Inner City Youth is a organization my father started in '97. We got incorporated because my younger brother had a best friend who would come to our house while we were getting tutoring. So my aunt was a teacher, and my father hired her to tutor us. And he would come by and ask for my brother to come outside, and my dad would be like, "No, he can't come outside." So he knew his father, and he would ask him like, "So what does your son do after school?" And he was like, "Well, there really isn't anything to do." So in our neighborhood, which I actually get the privilege to work in, is the neighborhood that I was born and raised in. The OMI, I don't know if any of you are familiar with like City College or San Francisco State. We call it Lakeview, right? So, but the city calls it the OMI. And so there really weren't any programs for teens, no after school programs, there was no academic programs. And so ICY came out of my father's, what he saw as a need for the young people in this neighborhood to have something to do that helped them improve academically. And so from that, we're 25 years later, and now I'm at the helm. My father passed on the position of executive director to me in around 2008. Since then, we've kind of shifted the work that we do to provide more workforce services, because as our population got older and they got into their teens, again, there weren't any programs. And so transitional age youth, these are the youngsters, everybody calls them at risk, in risk. There were a lot of issues of violence, gang violence, not a lot of opportunities, which is kind of like makes that population so vulnerable to street activity and what have you. And the OMI, if you're familiar with Lakeview, we have I don't know if this is the proper, we have a reputation for being heavily involved in in the Black market. Lakeview was a very middle class community of Black residents, but we were probably the first neighborhood where you saw a lot of outmigration of the Black community to Antioch and to the East Bay, escaping violence, really trying to provide their families with a better environment. And so that outmigration happened around 20 years ago. Since then, our population of Black homeownership has dwindled. And with that, the equity in this community. And so what you saw happening, or what I witnessed being a resident here and also working in this community, was as the Black community moved out of this neighborhood, different communities came in, but also opportunities left with them. And so one of the issues that I've been attacking is getting more visibility for this community. We have now, over the 10 years, finally are getting recognition for needing services. This is not a community that has a lot of public housing. And so a lot of times those type of services, supportive services, are built around public housing units and buildings. We don't have that in the OMI. So there was this perception in the city that this is not a neighborhood that needs services. They don't need a job center. They don't need after school programs. They don't need those things because that community, we just basically weren't on the radar, period. And so for the last 10 years, my advocacy has been, look at your numbers. Look at who has Section 8. Look at where we are. Look at the people that are applying for jobs. And so recently, and I wouldn't say with a lot of help from our neighborhood supervisor to kind of give us that platform, that has opened the door for us to the city to have a voice, right? So we've always known there's need in this community, but we just weren't getting recognized on a citywide level by city departments, and those allocations and those investments weren't being made. And so in 2018, again, with the supervisor's help and Mayor London Breed, we opened the OMI Job Center with funding from the Office of Economic and Workforce Development. A big partner with us was Josh Arce, who's over who's a head in that department, because we partnered with him to do a city build recruitment. And he was impressed with our outreach efforts and the engagement that we got. And he was so impressed because we did it in 2 weeks. We got about 40 people to come from the neighborhood. And I did not know that was impressive, right? I didn't know that getting 40 people to come to a job fair was a good thing. I was just like, man, if we had more time, we could have done more. And he was like, Gwen, that was big to get people to come to City Build. And I think one of the reasons is because City Build does not offer paid training, right? So that's something that, we're definitely trying to advocate for as workforce folks, is like, paid training for these positions, because you got to understand and recognize the populations that you're dealing with and what they need, those barrier removals. Asking someone to go to some type of training unpaid for a bulk of their day when they're already in need is inconsiderate, right? It's inconsiderate, if you ask me. And I definitely have a different perspective and a different lens, being that I'm working firsthand with these populations. But I think that as I've been able to interact with more city departments and more directors, and being able to highlight the need and the capacity that we do have in this community, has helped them reshape the way they see us. And I venture to say, make them more comfortable with making those investments. And so the people that we serve today, we serve 18 and over adults. The community that we target are I want to say 18 to 30 years old. Primarily system involved, reentry folks, but we don't turn anyone away. Some of the things that we've been working on is adding case managers who speak Spanish and Cantonese, so that we can be very well-rounded. Again, we don't turn anyone away. That is a privilege we're not afforded in a neighborhood that doesn't have services. So we just can't. It's always been our philosophy. And so today, one of the things that we're hoping to add to our job center is small business development and entrepreneurship services for a lot of people that live in this community who are independent contractors and or want to be entrepreneurs. And so I'll end that. I'll end my spiel with just with that, and saying that we are very grassroots. We remain grassroots. There's power in having a close connection to the community, and there's also capacity in community with proper investment. So thank you guys for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Gwen. That was great. Lots of information. Our last panelist, Janelle, are you ready? Come on in.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate just, being beside such brilliance. I really enjoy y'all's presentations right now. I'm Janelle Bailey. I'm the co-executive director of organizing and programs at the Los Angeles Black Worker Center. And the LABWC organizes to remove barriers to quality jobs for Black workers. Our organization was founded 10 years ago. Like I said, it's a base building organization. So that is an organization that's by and for Black workers. And our organization came together to address the Black jobs crisis. The Black jobs crisis manifests as more than half of Black folks being unemployed or underemployed in Los Angeles. And the Black jobs crisis is a result of 400 years of devaluing Black folks and Black work. And so that is, for example, poor policy choices, such as slavery, such as Jim Crow laws, such as Teen Young laws. The Great Migration, brought a lot of folks out of the South to, up north and out west. A lot of folks came out here to California from Louisiana and Texas. And so Teen Young laws, that's a French word, was basically just, saying that you couldn't have your hair out. If you had natural hair, you could not wear it out. And that, again, was policy there. Black codes were laws that said that Black folks could not assemble, could not marry, could not read, write, vote, own land. It was all kinds of policies that, built up to a culture of devaluing Black folks, devaluing Black work. And that legacy has continued, and led to a practice of discrimination that lands us in the moment that we're in today. And so our theory of change is around organizing Black workers, folks who are, directly impacted, can come together, identify, our own issues, craft solutions, and move those, in conjunction with allies. And so I'll speak a little bit about, the past work of the center. Black workers were involved in the fight for 15, here in California. I'm personally from Chicago, and I came to the center about a year and a half ago. And from Chicago, we watched, what happened in California, because, when you try to pass policy in Chicago, one of the first questions you get is, who else is doing this? Where are they doing this at? How are they doing it? Did it happen in LA? So we were watching, the organizing that was happening here. We saw Black folks come together and establish a center. We saw multiracial coalitions of folks coming together to change the laws around wage theft, around wages and lack thereof. And that was inspirational and continues to be, for folks across the country. The Do You See Me Now campaign was one that was led by the Black Worker Center that right now is right on Crenshaw. And that's like, we call it Black Downtown. It's like the main drag, right there on Crenshaw. And the transit system was building a train. And this is $1 billion project coming right through people's neighborhoods. And there are no Black workers on that line. So how did you build this train, system right through this Black neighborhood? Ain't nobody working on it. And so that campaign was to hold, the city, hold the trades, hold the transit system accountable, and say that Black folks need to share in the prosperity when this city is on the come up. And so that campaign was very successful. And so they changed, from having less than 1% of Black folks there up to almost a fifth. And so they had a monitoring project where it was Black folks out, even with binoculars at like 5 a.m., just watching to see, who was working and, checking in on that. And, so that was a huge victory for the center. And now I'll come back and talk more about that. But I also, want to tell you about some of the other victories that have to do with the anti-discrimination work, because we often find that discrimination is one of the biggest barriers for Black folks to finding work. And it is challenging sometimes in like worker organizing spaces. And I'm sure y'all can connect to this where, people are talking about like specific sectors and, wage theft. And it's like, well, I can't get my wages thieved if I don't have no wages. And so the lack of a job is the greatest form of wage theft. And so, addressing discrimination would remove that barrier and give people more, access to work. And so, as a part of that, this organization set out to change the law. It's a statewide ban on local enforcement of discrimination laws. So basically what that means is California has some of the best anti-discrimination laws like on the books in the country, but ain't nobody enforcing them. And so it's not clear that, people in the city, county, wherever that's local to you can help enforce that. And so we're still on that fight, on a statewide level. However, locally that was successful because the city of LA and the officials here were they were inspired to lead on that. It's 2 minutes. Okay. They were inspired to lead on that, and they established a civil and human rights department. And so that is the first ever in the city of LA. And that is to address discrimination for folks, like I said, who are looking for work here in the city. And so, I name all those just to demonstrate, how, Black folks are on the forefront of fighting for that, and that those victories, of course, impact everyone. Folks from all protected classes benefit from the wins of Black workers. But going back to, the Do You See Me Now campaign, and the campaign that led to more Black folks getting work, in the trades, building that train that was coming down Crenshaw. So following that victory, you get, the typical, I'm sure y'all heard this before, where the employers are like, oh, we want to hire Black folks, we just can't find any. And, much like your experience, Gwen, like we know where we're at, so that was not difficult to find folks. However, accompanying folks, on the journey to be prepared to take that job, and really just giving people context for what they was about to get into is what the Ready to Work program is about. So the Ready to Work program is a community-led workforce development program that focuses on leadership development. And so in that, we have the political education where you talk with folks about what the Black jobs crisis is and how it impacts you. A lot of times with workforce development, it's like, make the worker shiny and new, pull up your pants, we're gonna fix your resume. With our programs, there ain't nothing wrong with you. Here's what's been going on. Here's how you fold into it. And when you get into this situation, here's what you can expect and how we can support you in dealing with that. It means that when folks get into that, into their workplaces, because we do refer people, and we have some partnerships that, they are equipped with OSHA training that they had with us at our office, and they are able to identify safety hazards in the workplace to keep themselves and their coworkers safe. The mentorship that, our other members provide to folks who have gone through the program brings more retention. It means that people stay on those jobs, and honestly, helps with less of the turnover, for other folks. The turnover is not just a problem for the employer, obviously, it's a problem for everybody involved. And let's see, as far as insights that, I would offer for, folks who are, providing services, or, just all of us who are engaged in this workforce program, a lot of the folks that we meet, unfortunately, sometimes they'll come by our office, and we've heard this on more than one occasion. People will say, this is my last stop. And when people say that, it's heavy, because it means not only I'd already been EDD and already, try to engage in this system, it failed me. And the Black Worker Center is my last stop. And for some people, sometimes they really do mean this is my last stop. I'm at my wit's end. And people who are, searching for meaning and being, because that's American culture where people identify so closely with their work. And what does that mean when people cannot find work, and how they see value in themselves? And so that's a heavy thing to hear, just sitting up in the office when people come by and say that. And so, when you're engaging with folks, just understand, where all they may have been before they come to you, and where they may have to go, afterwards. Folks more often than not, don't need training. they've been trained to death. You know, people need, you know, as has been articulated to me, most often placements. It's the commitment, you know, to run through the finish line with them. That's us as an organization, you know, agreeing to, you know, commit to support people after, you know, they've arrived in their placement. And, you know, the idea of wraparound services, it sounds cool to say, but my goodness, it's so difficult. And who has the capacity to give all that? That's something that we need a full network to support people with, because having a good job or no job at all, of course, touches every aspect of your life. And also understanding that the crisis is not individual. You know, the Black jobs crisis, you know, just impacts everyone so differently. And, you know, anyone who, you know, is struggling through that, not only I think is it important for them to know that it is not individual. This is, you know, a system that has been in place again for hundreds of years, you know, enacting on you. That is true for others who are interacting with people who are bearing the brunt of the crisis right now.
Thank you, Gwen. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Gwen.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay.
Janelle, you're the one panelist I didn't have a chance to meet ahead of time, and it was great to meet you and to hear about your organization and the work that you're doing in LA. So thank you so much, and I really appreciate the way the panelists covered different perspectives. And it seems like between the three of you, we've got a good broad picture of some of the activities that are going on around supporting workers and explicitly supporting workers that have been historically the most marginalized and impacted by systemic racism. So thank you all so much. And I just want to check in and see if there are any questions for any of the panelists. You can raise your hand. You can, I think, Kim, how do you like to facilitate Q&A? Any way we want?
I can offer, I had turned off the option for people to unmute, but let me turn it back on.
Yeah.
There you go. So either way, in the chat or unmute yourself if you have a question.
Hi, everybody. I had a question for the entire panel, if that's possible. I'd like to hear everyone's answer if there's time for it. My name is George Colon. I'm the Workforce and Youth Programs Manager for SF Made and for Manufacture San Jose. And we recently had an event to assist Amy's Kitchen in hiring for a new production facility in San Jose. And the majority of the applicants were Hispanic and over the age of 40. And had very limited, their connection to technology was limited. It was conducted via Zoom, and it seemed like Amy's Kitchen was prepared they had plenty of Spanish speakers to conduct online interviews, but that disconnection to technology seemed to be a pretty big barrier for a lot of the applicants. And I went back and did some checking, and I was noticing that seems to be a pretty big barrier for a lot of applicants. So I wanted to ask if any of you have good resources for connecting job seekers to getting trained on basic computer literacy and becoming more comfortable with technology like smartphones and tablets and that sort of thing.
You start at the beginning. Yaya, any thoughts?
Yes, thank you, George, for that question. Absolutely. One of the things is that we have been training and creating videos for our workers is specifically on the tools that we utilize. Definitely Zoom is one of them. Facebook is another one, WhatsApp. Not to mention a lot of like internal tools. And so, yeah, one of the ways that we found is to create videos. So for example, we are a membership-based organization, and in order to become a member, you have to log on, you have to go to our website, join there, fill it all out. And people had a lot of questions about it. How do I access the benefits that I have? And so we created a video, and now like we've seen like the increase of members actually using the benefits that we have for them. I know that there's an organization in East Palo Alto, I believe it's Street Code, that actually in the Bay Area provides computers and computer training to people. So that might be a resource that might be helpful. And mainly we do everything like, one-on-one with people, but I do believe that there's a huge need for technology. The last thing I'll say is that this morning, I just had a meeting with the California Domestic Workers Coalition, because starting in January, we're starting a program called DWOP, or Domestic Workers Education and Outreach Program. And these are like organizers and staff of organizations who came together this morning. And what was the number one thing that even as organizers and staff were saying? We need more training on technology. So it's not only like folks that don't have access to computers, that don't speak the language, et cetera. It's like also, a lot of us need to up our skills in that area. So yes, thank you.
Thank you. Gwen, you want to add anything to that?
So I just put in a chat a video for Digital Mobility Labs. And what they do is they provide consulting to CBOs, businesses, departments to for this specific reason. They work with like people who have no experience with computers, right? So and their target population is seniors. Because of COVID, that's the biggest population they're working with because of COVID. Seniors are the most vulnerable population. And so how do they have access, or how do they get to access services and resources like grocery shopping, essential services, even doctor's appointments and stuff like that? And so they are working with that population, but they offer consulting to businesses, to anybody who is looking to connect folks who have like the least amount of technical training and experience. And I think that's why they chose the seniors first. Not only that, this is a business and a group run by a Black man who is from community and wants to help build the digital divide with folks who are disenfranchised. And so this is his specific like goal. And so I put the YouTube in there. They have contracts with HUD. They have contracts with Richmond, City of Richmond, Vallejo, all kinds of different entities. But their goal is to like really bridge the digital divide. Because if COVID hasn't told us yet, like if you don't have like technological skills, or you don't know how to use technology, you're gonna be left out. And so so I think, that their timing for what they're doing is kind of like perfect. But he's told me for years, like, when I saw this coming. I wish I would have listened to him and invested in Zoom when he told me to, but I missed out on that. And I have to live with that now. But yeah, so that I put them as a resource. But I know one of the things that I do is I try to definitely utilize cell phones as much as possible. The internet is one thing. Most people may not have. You might have a computer, but do you have access to the computer? And then with things right now, you have access to the internet. And so a lot of times with phones, I'm communicating and I'm building up my infrastructure so that my staff can send links. So all applications, all that stuff is going straight to a cell phone, because people don't even know how to use emails, but they got a phone most usually. And so if we could send their links and engage with them through their phones, most people have iPhones. If they don't have iPhones, you have all those other apps so that you can do that FaceTime. And so we really figured out how to take our whole program digital, so that we're calling ourselves and we're terming ourselves. we want to be workforce influencers, right? So there's all these YouTube influencers, right? There's all this fashion, this and that, and really kind of meeting people where they are. Because the world of YouTube is like, man, I don't know if colleges are even going to need to be in existence anymore. You can literally learn anything on YouTube. And so how do we utilize the tools that people are familiar with to get them the information and resources that they need? So I guess that would kind of like be that's my strategy, is like taking my stuff to those cell
phones. Yeah, cell phone platform compatibility is very instrumental into reaching into communities that oftentimes don't have as much access. Janelle, what you got?
Honestly, I would co-sign everything that y'all said. I think that was pretty much it. The only thing that I would add, I think, is that for some folks, it's not always the issue of not knowing how to use the technology. It's more like being confident. And so what we'll do a lot of times is we'll just bring folks in and you just kind of sit with them and put it in their hand. Sometimes that really is just it. That's not true for everyone, but just acknowledging for some folks that's it. But yeah, I think y'all nailed it. That's all I would add.
All right, thank you. Well, that was a good round of questions. I'm being prompted to go on to the next section. I have questions. I'm gonna definitely be following up, and hopefully maybe we can figure out a way of keeping people connected if they would like to be in touch with these presenters in the future. I think there's probably a lot more that they could share. But I was asked to do a little bit about how to engage inclusively. So all three of these panelists have implied and made it clear that in their practice, they are centering empowerment of the workers, which requires a different kind of engagement. And I get the chance to work with city staff all the time on how to engage with community across these barriers, the systemic barriers and the structural barriers that are impacting people's lives, can really get in their way of being able to engage with these kinds of activities that could be very beneficial to them. It's not just technology, it's also about how we do outreach and how we are with people when we engage. And so it has come, I've been in government for a long time, longer than I've been doing racial equity work. Actually, I was a sort of a all-purpose bureaucrat for the first half of my career or so. And what I came to learn very quickly was that government in particular, but I think institutions in general, we tend to engage or try to engage people in ways that are comfortable for us or that work for us, but don't necessarily take the needs of the people we're trying to reach into consideration. And that's the difference between centering workers or centering community and just doing things to community or for community or about community. If we are going to do things differently, we're going to have to actually work hard to engage differently. And so I brought just a short little slide deck. Our goal is to run through some of these principles that I share with folks. I'm going to try and make it bigger at the City of Oakland to change their practice, not because they're bad people or any of us intend to be bad people, but because we don't have particularly good habits about engaging across differences and to organizations with whom we are not already connected. So we have to be very intentional. And I motivate people to change their practice and to be intentional, because the kind of work that needs to be done on behalf of workers and other marginalized groups requires this engagement in order for us to hit the mark. So this is just the graphic that I use. We can fire a lot of energy and a lot of work in a lot of different directions, but if we don't engage our communities well that we're trying to serve, then we don't hit the bullseye, and people don't actually benefit from our hard work and intentions to do better. So there's a few things I want to cover, just three things. One is how necessary it is to be cognizant of what kind of a campaign or kind of a engagement are you doing? What is the goal of the participation that you're trying to do? And oftentimes we go out there vague about this. And there's a progression of different kinds of engagement. The most superficial or the most simple, but least productive, least deep, is an informational engagement where it's one way, where we're educating our audience about a program or about what we're trying to do and how it works, and here's how to sign up, and look at the website, and here's how you know, get your name in the hat for services, or whatever the case might be. And we're just pushing information at them. That's information engagement. That's important. And it's going to be required for all these other levels of engagement as well. We're going to have to, first of all, introduce ourselves to people and tell them what we're about. So there's a need to be clear and concise and accessible, both language, across language barriers and all of the other ways that people can be challenged. When we're providing one-way information, we have to think about inclusion and what kinds of techniques need to be used. The next deeper level is consultation, where we're gathering information and asking for advice from, this says citizens, this is not, I didn't choose the words in this, I would say residents, in the case of the city of Oakland, residents to better inform the city's work and so on. And so we're messaging a slightly different way that way. And we're also opening our ears up more than in the first level, and actually asking the audience to help us in the development of a response to some problem, or development of a program or policy or law or something. So we're consulting, we're asking people to give us input. That's often what's called. What it's called is go out and get some input from your constituency. And so we have to, when we're doing that, we have to also make it as easy as possible for people to give us their input. And we have to be thinking about still things like translation and interpretation, and where are we doing it, and is it accessible, and all those sorts of things. The next level down is collaboration. And this is where we're really attempting to create a real partnership. And I think that the groups that we've heard from today are more partnership or base building organizations. They're getting down into these deeper levels in the way that they're working with workers to center their wisdom and their ideas and their own ability to problem solve and advocate for themselves and move change forward on their for themselves as a group. And so collaboration requires more intentionality about how we're going to do participative decision making. What kind of design activities might we create that our audience will be able to participate and willing to participate in? We let them help us create the vision for the outcome that we're trying to get. And we may set up some formal structures to work on ongoing collaboration. This is oftentimes a longer term project, and it might take some time to include. So we have to think about how we're going to proceed. And then the last one is the deepest form of engagement, and is quite rare in government, actually, because we have a representative democracy. We usually expect our decision makers to be the people that we've elected to make those decisions, but that's not always the case. Sometimes even government can choose to share decision-making power with the community in various ways. And this is a much different conversation because we have to retool our own ability to share power, whatever might be challenging about that. We have to get out of our own way with regard to being the people that have all the answers if we're going to truly engage our communities and our audience in being part of the decision making. It's a gigantic shift for government and for most institutions, actually. And I like to dream that in the ideal world, the future, the equitable future, the just future that we're creating for our cities and our areas, there will be much more shared decision making, because I really do believe that oftentimes the people closest to the problems are the ones that are really closest to the solutions and should have more power in deciding what the solutions are or what the strategies are. So these are different levels of engagement. And the reason it's important to be clear going in what kind of engagement you're doing is because we don't want to be fuzzy or inconsistent or unclear about what we're asking of people when they're giving us their time and their energy, of which they often don't have much to spare. We want to make sure that we are not confusing about what kind of a process we're doing. And that will also engender trust, because it causes us to be more transparent about what we're asking for, where we are, what decisions are on the table, what decisions aren't on the table, and that sort of thing. And trust building is a key part. So transparency and trust building, really important. And if we can't be transparent and clear, if we aren't clear ourselves about what it is we're doing. There are some best practices. These are widely held best practices among organizers and folks that do outreach professionally, that really good engagement is about relationship building. And we just have to face that. And that can be very hard for government. It might be hard for your organization too. And we tend to have the least relationships with the people who are most underserved. That's part of structural racism. That's how it's arranged. And we have to actually be part of overcoming that and actually prioritize relationships in locations across our audiences and communities where we have not had those relationships. And that tends to align with underserved communities. So we have to put ourselves out there, we have to take risks, and we have to try a lot harder to know the people that we are serving in a much more intimate way, I'm going to say, for lack of a better descriptor. We want to engage them early and consult with them regarding how we approach the work, not just what we're doing, but how we do it, because they know the best way to communicate within their groups and their networks. Want to remove barriers to access. This is language and every other kind of barrier that you can possibly imagine, including creating a welcoming environment. Oftentimes, particularly government environments for engagement are rather sterile or structured in a way that is not welcoming to our most underserved residents. And then we want to make a commitment to maintain contact with these groups that we go out to and use their time and take their wisdom back into our work. We want to report back. We want to be accountable for how we use their ideas, and if we didn't use their ideas, why we didn't. We want to close those loops, because I think there's oftentimes complaints in our communities that we ask them too often to engage in our processes, and that it comes to nothing. And I think that that is something that really undermines trust and willingness to continue to participate. So we have to commit to being good partners and looping back with people and letting them know how it's going. And then along the way, we can, of course, partner with diverse community-based building organizations like the ones that have presented today, that we've had with us today. We can partner with these groups that are already connected and already working on the issues that we're interested in. We don't need to reinvent everything. We have great partners in almost every topic area in the community, well-rooted at the bottom with the grassroots in our areas. Finally, what kind of questions do we ask people when we get together? We want to treat them like the experts that they are about the conditions that we're working on. We want them to tell us what kinds of changes do they want to see in our proposals or programs, and what do they not want to see changed? What's working well for them? What are the barriers to positive outcomes or the root causes related to existing disparities that they have experienced? What is their experience of the problem? We have an idea about that, but we don't usually have the experience. How might they be affected by risks or burdens related to the proposal, possible harm that they could see coming as a result of what we're doing or not doing? We want them to highlight that for us, call it out, name it, so that we don't miss it, because we just might, because what's a barrier or a harm to someone else might not be a barrier or a harm to us. What ideas to address the risk of harm do they have? Ask them, what would they do differently to keep that harm from happening? How might they benefit from the policy or the program or the plan? And how could those benefits be amplified? Are we leaving something on the table? Is there something obvious we could be doing better that would boost the benefits to them just by how the program is designed and how we do it? And then, of course, what other ideas for improvements do they have? We want to have some time allocated to very open-ended questions where they get to go where they need to go in their conversation with us when we're trying to further and advance equity and justice for marginalized communities. So these are some tips. They're from a guide that we have, which we can share with you, that's much more in depth. But I figured that was as much as you could probably deal with today. And there's a lot to think about, but if you adhere to these basics, you will be a lot further along than most engagement processes tend to be. So with that, I think, let's see, who was it that's going to talk about organizing the breakout groups? We wanted to give you all a chance to talk with each other about what you've seen and heard today.
That's right. Thanks, Darlene. Thanks to everyone. We are going to now take out an opportunity for folks to get into small groups to talk about what you've heard today. And as you get into those breakout groups, we have a few questions that we want you to consider. I just put them in the chat, but I'll read them aloud so that you can think about them before you get assigned to a group. And those questions are: first, what are you doing to engage workers and community? Then, how have you used or seen someone else use the kind of inclusive process strategies that folks have discussed today, whether it's the implementation plan, the grassroots and on-the-ground efforts, and now of all the strategies and practices that you've heard about today, what could you do if you were to think about tomorrow? Let's get this ball rolling. What are you doing? What can you do to increase engagement with community? So please consider those questions as you get into those small groups.
Great. And you're gonna have a little more than 10 minutes to just introduce yourselves quickly and then try to work through the questions that Valerie just read off. So they'll still be in the chat, so don't worry. I'm gonna send everybody out right now. And one of us will be in each room to help if you need some support moving through the questions. All right, here we go. It wasn't letting people unmute themselves to talk. Will you see if you can go, Valerie, into another room and if people are talking? What? Unmute yourselves.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can.
Can you assign me to a different room? It's gonna kick me back into 5.
How do I do that? Breakouts? I guess I go breakout rooms. What happened? I couldn't talk in my group. I don't know. I mean, I could, but nobody else could unmute. What the heck? I hadn't given people the ability to unmute themselves.
Yeah, I wonder if folks had to unmute.
I'm gonna just send you to 1. How about 1? Okay. Yeah, people are allowed to unmute themselves.
Can you put me in another room? They seem to be chatting. Okay.
Great. Okay, great. Let me put you into 3. I don't know why. And I looked at my settings. The settings are correct.
I wonder if folks had to unmute themselves. So I think maybe folks were able to unmute, but let me check this room and I'll come back.
Okay, okay, great. They were
Folks,
chopping
yep,
it up?
yep.
Oh, okay, well, that's a good sign that it was just that one.
Hey, Kim, can you try to get me back into room 1? Because it kicked me out when you tried to get me in there. Kim, can you hear me? Anybody at all?
Yeah, I think Kim went into a breakout group. Let me see if I can text her to put you back in. Was it room 1?
I was in room 1. If you're a co-host, or maybe can I put myself? I don't know if I can.
Kim, can
I
you put
wonder.
back in 1? I think she got kicked out.
Who got kicked out? Ruth, do you want to go in a group?
I mean, I assume you needed me in group 1. I don't know.
Yeah.
Did you need me?
Please. Let me send you. And Valerie, I'm sorry, what happened?
Oh, it was just to get Ruth back in group 1.
Oh, great. There we go. You're gone, Ruth, when you're ready. I can move this person to. I went in and yeah, there's nobody in 5. That's weird. Move to room 1. I'm gonna move that person to room 1. How much time is there? Oh, there's still 5 minutes. Okay. That was a long 5 minutes.
Anna, are you having trouble getting into a group?
No, we haven't. Looks like we have somebody from each. Like Ruth is in 1. There's nobody in 2 where I was. I moved that one person out to another room. They can go to the room, not go to the room. And then room 3 has Darlene in it. Room 4 has Jesse in it.
Okay, I currently see someone in this room or this main area.
Yes, this is Anna Gonzalez.
Hi, Anna. Would you like to go somewhere?
Yeah, sure. I think there's only 3 more minutes, but yeah, sorry, I stepped out and I came back. So
no worries, because I went into my room that I was assigned to, and I was like, "Hello, anybody?" So let me put you in a room. It's understandable. Everybody's go, Ruth, go.
thank you.
And let me say, Ruth, it just won't go. I don't know what's happening. I think she might be having technical problems. All right, let me send you to room 4.
Great, thank you so much.
Of course. When you're ready, accept or whatever the little button is. Oh God, Ruth is still there.
Yeah, I'm
She
not
keeps
getting
losing
that.
her connection.
I'm not getting that option.
Uh-uh.
It's okay, don't worry. I'll just mute myself and yeah.
No. You're like, you don't want to listen to us panic over the logistics. Let me see. I keep moving you, but it just doesn't happen, I guess.
It's not happening on my end. I'm not getting.
I just tried it again. Are you getting any pop-up?
No, not at all.
Why is the pop-up not coming for you? It definitely has you in a room and it says not joined. Oh, the mysteries of Zoom. Huh, sorry about that. Oh, looks like Ruth is in her breakout. Whew. She's had bad Wi-Fi connections today. She's probably at the hub in the mission. But Anna, we can talk now. What did you think about the different presentations that you heard and the work that folks are doing?
Oh, it's amazing. It's really amazing. I'm a project manager at the UCLA Labor Center.
What?
Yeah, so we do a lot of research, and we're actually we launched an initiative not so long ago that is convening, workforce development service providers, unions, worker centers, and local workforce boards to talk about how we can make the workforce development system much more equitable and inclusive. So this is just right up.
Can I talk to you after this? Because we're gonna apply for this funding again for the next phase. And maybe we can do it together.
Oh, that would be awesome. We would love to definitely collaborate. So we just launched the initiative a couple months ago. So, and one of your panelists, Janelle, is part of the steering committee. So
awesome.
Yes, let's talk.
Power, imagine the power. SoCal, NoCal. Oh, people, it's on.
It is. This is amazing. So truly inspired by all the work that's happening in Northern California. And this is great because we don't really work with a lot of organizations in Northern California. So this would be an awesome way to collaborate.
Well, you have my email, right? And I must have yours because I emailed you the link, but I will make sure that we connect right away because the RFP is probably coming out in the next few weeks. And so let's talk about how we can try to align and I don't know what else, what's possible given what you guys are already have on your plates, but let's definitely talk.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. And I could send you maybe I'll send you my info in the chat so that
would be great. That would be great. Thank you so much. Let's see, let me check on how much time is left. So just a minute.
It worked out that I wasn't part of a group.
For real. Who knew? So that's like serendipity right there. Awesome. And everybody's coming back in like 30 seconds. So Valerie, I think we just want to have people, maybe somebody, let me do a broadcast a message, which I should have done like 3 minutes ago. Oh, there's no point now. There's 4 seconds. Oh no. Wait, oh no, but now I can't broadcast. It's closing in 1 minute.
Welcome back, folks.
Welcome. Oh, sure, Marianne, turn off your camera now.
Oh, I think you're on mute.
My whole team's been giving me a hard time because I set up my desk in front of my Christmas tree. So they've been
tired of hearing it. I am enjoying that.
I know, it's really nice, isn't it? It's really, and it's real. It's not a fake one. Like, so then people started putting the fake ones behind them. I'm like, no, this is my actual tree.
It's not a background.
Nope.
That's such a good idea. We need all the positive, happy energy we can use right now.
Yep.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. We lost a few people in the transition to breakouts. Their loss. But if folks, I was thinking we did have, I think, 3 or 4 robust groups. And if folks feel like they want to just take a minute and somebody's game from each group to share maybe something that jumped out for them or something that inspired them from your conversation, just like maybe 1 minute per group, if there's somebody who doesn't mind unmuting and speaking.
This is Yaya. One of the things that came up in our group, which we all agreed on, was the sense of peer support and how much that can move us forward. All of the folks in our group, to some extent, are doing that or have done that. And I think from my organizing experience with NGWA, the way that I've received more referrals for domestic workers is through other domestic workers. And, you know, and so that's what it's about. Like people tell, you know, people sharing the pasando la voz, like we say in Spanish, you know, just sharing word of mouth, and then they will come.
That's right. That's right. The power of connection. Anybody else?
So I'll speak. I think we were in group 1. It was really just me and Marianne. Marianne's from, she works for the county of San Bernardino, or the city of San Bernardino. Sorry, not the county. But one of the things that we talked about were their recruitment process, a new thing that they're doing, which is recruiting from natives to go into city government and to work for the city of San Bernardino. And I think that is smart and a great way to build leadership within. And also, I think Darlene said it, right? So sometimes the solutions are in the folks closest to some of the problems. And I would say closest to community. So I totally commend Marianne and San Bernardino for being more open and innovative to trying things like that. I think sometimes it's like common sense in a sense, but like sometimes when you're on a government level, bureaucracy kind of makes it hard to do things that seem so, you know, like, whoa, that makes sense. So
That's right.
that was something that we talked about, and we were really just rapping. We didn't even really answer the question.
That's what makes these breakouts so much fun. And any other rooms want to share any insights that they had? No pressure. We don't have to. Darlene, just as we before we close out, I was hoping to get a little bit of feedback from folks about, and oh, I don't think we have time. I may scratch that. Never mind. And before I pass it to you to close, I just want to say I put the survey in the chat. We are wrapping up this project, going to apply for a next phase of funding. One, we need your feedback for our final report. This is a grant funded project, just like y'all have to write your reports for your funding. We got to do that too. So please take the time to fill out the survey. And then we also are looking for partners who will probably apply for new funding for the state. And so if you're interested in partnering, participating, just following, we want to hear about that too, and what your ideas are for what would the next phase of this project look like. So please fill that out. And then back to you, Darlene.
Well, I don't have too much more to add, except I just want to thank everyone for their participation and how share with you how being involved in projects like this and coming outside of the walls of the city of Oakland, where I spend most of my time working with city staff and city departments to advance racial equity in our work, getting to come out into the community and be in discussion groups and working with panels from different aspects of justice work is so inspiring to me. And the reason that I'm glad to be here and spend the time doing it is because I think it is through these connections with each other that we remember that we can do this. We can change the world. And sometimes when we're isolated in our given responsibility spheres, whatever they might be, it can start to feel so terribly heavy and daunting and overwhelming. And when we come together like this and listen to each other and share with each other, I always go back renewed and impressed and inspired by how much amazing work is going on and how in total we will change the world. So thank you all so much. That's it.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate the panelists. Appreciate
Yes,
everybody who
thank you so much.
came.
We'll
Thank you,
see
Darlene, for your excellent moderation.
You all made it pretty easy. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great afternoon.